Join me every month for the inspiration to find your finish line. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Find Your Finish Line, presented by Curad, the official medical supplier of Ironman. Curad, where you've got the far infrared kinesiology tape, and this stuff really works. So make sure you use it before, during, after training, and you can pick it up at Walmart. You pick it up at Ironman.com and on Amazon. Well, Find Your Finish Line is not only about you being able to find your finish line at a race or an event, but in life, we have to find our finish line almost on a daily basis to keep moving forward. And I talk to people who have jumped over a lot of hurdles to keep those finish lines in sight. And I'm going to talk to a couple of people today that exemplify that exactly. So make sure that you do check in and pick us up on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever you'd like to do. That's where we're at. My guests today, Tad Weiss and Maggie Swanson from Minnesota, father, daughter. How are we doing, you guys?
We're good. It snowed recently here, so that's a little different than San Diego.
Yeah, triathlon season's over for the year up here.
Oh, well, you know, there's always indoor stuff. Don't give me that. You can always go indoor. You know that.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Maggie did Ironman Wisconsin this past September. She actually won her age group in the 25 to 29. She went like 10:48. Qualified for Kona. Congratulations, Maggie. Qualified for the 2023 race. And
Thank
Dad, you're welcome. And Dad's been doing triathlons, my goodness, since like 2001. And he did his first Ironman in Wisconsin in 2002. But this year, he finished fourth in his age group, 60 to 64. So welcome to both of you on the show. It was great that I had the opportunity to meet you at the Ironman Foundation function that we had in Madison. But I always like to ask my guests, I don't know if it's happened to you today, but did you guys get a workout in today?
I did. I biked this morning and I went for a run a little before the snow started, but definitely ran through some snow.
Yeah, she's still training at full speed, and yeah, I got to work out in too, Mike. So a little bit of cardio and a little bit of weights.
Good for you guys. Yeah, you got to keep it up. I mean, this season though, we get to kind of back off and relax because of the long season of the summertime. So that's good. I'm glad you're still at it. Well, you two like to race together. And Tad, you brought your daughter into the fold long ago, suggesting, and I think you ran the Twin Cities Marathon back in the day together. Maggie, how old were you when you ran that marathon together with your dad?
I was 17, so I was a senior in high school, and my dad suggested that we run Twin Cities Marathon together before I went off to school. Early on in my junior year, I think, and thought about it for a little bit and ultimately decided that was what I wanted to do, and that was my first endurance race.
So what, at 17 years old, I mean, I know a lot of 17 years old who, if father or mother said, hey, come on, we're going to run a marathon, they'd look at them cross-eyed and said, that's not going to happen. But what do you think it was inside of you, Maggie, that you said, you know, at that young age, I think I want to do this?
Well, I had my dad as a role model growing up. He raced Ironman Wisconsin when I was 6. I used to bike with him during his long runs. Mm-hmm. So I would bike, he would run. And I always had that desire to follow in his footsteps. Then when he suggested it, I liked running. Started running after I swam my freshman year of high school. And he suggested it as a good way to stay in shape and bond during my final year at home. And I thought about it and ultimately decided that, yeah, it would be a fun way to celebrate my going away, and a great way to see the Twin Cities and and bond with my dad. And it was a great way to bond together over those months of training.
That's beautiful. And Tad, you ask your daughter to run a marathon. Not every father says, hey, how would you like to run 26.2 with me? And obviously she's seen your training as an endurance athlete and everything. But did you have a little trepidation of, gosh, am I pushing her too early? I don't want her to feel obligated because I asked her. Did those types of feelings go through your head when you suggested it?
No, at the time, Mike, I just kind of threw it out there and let it dangle a little bit and let her think about it and come to her own decision that she wanted to do it. And I have to say that during the training in the summer months, Twin Cities marathons in early October every year, there were some long runs where she wasn't really happy with me and happy to be out there, but she stuck with it. And then come race day, I remember it clearly. We're at mile 23, and she turns to me and goes, I'm feeling good. Let's kick it in a little bit. And I'm like, no, we're going to stay right here at this pace.
Not because you wanted to protect your daughter, Tad. You're probably thinking, okay, this is a good pace. Let's not kill ourselves
Yeah,
here.
that was the first time, Mike, where I was like, okay, I think she is starting to pass me by.
Well, at least it was a slow process at the beginning. It didn't hit you upside the head,
That's right. That's right.
Oh, I love that. Okay, let's go down the road of Maggie, and you go overseas now. You go to school for a semester in Spain. And like you always do, you go out for a run. That's the great thing about running. No matter where we are in the world, we can just go do it and go get it done. That was in June of 2014. But you're out for a run, and it didn't end up the way you thought it was going to end up. Take us through that process of that bus running the red light while you were out there.
Yeah, certainly. So after my sophomore year of college, I went to a small liberal arts school in Minnesota. And after my sophomore year, I was running cross country and track, and I didn't want to miss a season by going abroad for a semester. So I thought, well, I should go abroad during the summer. So I went overseas after my sophomore year. It was originally a 2-month program but I was I was training for the upcoming cross country season. So I was going for a run every morning. And on my 10th day of being there and training, I was crossing a busy highway intersection near my homestay, and I was hit by a bus that ran a red light, um, going 25 miles per hour.
37.
37 miles per hour. And that bus launched me 25 meters in the air, and I landed on the pavement and had a shattered pelvis, a broken elbow, multiple broken ribs, and a traumatic brain injury in 2 places in my brain.
Were you conscious or cognizant of what had happened to you?
I don't remember the accident when it occurred. I remember a little bit from the day before, but I have total amnesia of the accident and the month following the accident. So they rushed me to the hospital, and I was treated there in the intensive care unit, and then they called my parents.
And this whole time you're being treated, you're by yourself, aren't you, Maggie?
Yes, I am. I was by myself for about 24 hours, until my parents could get there. They got a flight and hurried over as fast as they could, and that was really the first miracle we saw. Well, there were multiple miracles in the accident, that the bus didn't run me over, that the injuries I sustained weren't as severe as they could have been, and that I didn't die. That was the biggest miracle. But the flight over for my parents was a miracle as well. A miracle they could get on the plane, that had been oversold for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, so we were able to get on a flight right away and get over to Spain. Maggie was in Sevilla in the southern part of Spain,
Hmm.
and took us about 28 hours to get by her side. So she made it through the night, and which was our most fervent prayer, and then just slowly started this process of recovery that's been really going on for years and years since.
Well, Tad, let's talk about that. I mean, I, as a parent, can't imagine receiving a phone call. You know, it's like the old dreaded thing of every parent, especially when the kids are away at college or gone or living in another city, to get a phone call like that. And then those 28 hours for you and your wife must have been excruciating of trying to get there. What'd you think when you had that phone call for the first time?
Yeah, it was 8 o'clock in the morning on a Thursday. I was just starting a work day, and I was actually in a meeting when my assistant knocked on the door and told me there was a lady on the phone from Spain that needed to talk to me. So I immediately knew something was wrong. And she told me what she knew about the accident, that Maggie had been hit by a bus and that she was in the intensive care unit. So my wife and I dropped everything and started our journey over to Spain. And we got there the next morning, about 10 o'clock in the morning, Spain time, by the time that we made it to Maggie's side. At first you're just totally rocked by the news. You don't know what to expect. You don't know how bad the accident is. Um, the whole time you're praying that by the time that you get there that it won't be as bad as
Hmm.
you fear. But the flight over, we connected through Chicago and then had a flight from Chicago to Madrid, and that 9 hour flight was a very long 9 hours. There just isn't anything that you can do in that situation except my wife Wendy and I just talked with each other and prayed with each other and hoped for the best. Once we got to Madrid, we connected on a flight to Sevilla and got to the hospital early the next morning in Spain. When we saw Maggie for the first time in the hospital, roughly at 10 o'clock that morning, our, our, our prayers that she would make it through the night were answered yes, but she just didn't look she just looked in horrible shape when we saw her. She wasn't recognizable. It didn't look like her. She was hooked up to every machine and monitor that you can imagine, and we knew that we were in for a long haul when we saw her in that situation.
Yeah, it's almost like, I mean, the feeling you had, on the positive nature and your prayers, but you get there and go, "Gosh, I just want my daughter to live." You're not even thinking about recovery or how can we get to the next step and everything. That had to be a feeling that you had to try to push away to, keep those positive thoughts and those positive prayers coming Maggie's way so that it could help her heal.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike, and the whole journey and watching her heal was also just an amazing process. The first 4 days after the accident were critical for her survival.
Hmm.
But we were confident early on that she was going to make it. All of the signs were good, and so many people came alongside of us to help us. We're over in a country where we don't speak the language. We don't know any people in Spain, and we can't talk to the doctors. Everything's done
Wow.
through an interpreter, and you really get into a point very quickly where you realize, hey, there's nothing that I can bring to the table here. I'm depending on other people to care for my daughter and to help us. And the support that we received in Spain, as well as from our friends back home and around the globe, was amazing. And
I
we just very early on were given a confidence and a calm that that God had saved her for a purpose, and that she was going to be okay, and that we could really just be there to be by her side and be with the people that came around us, and it just turned into an amazing experience of about 3.5 weeks. Was how long we were in Spain.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. And Maggie, did you? When was the first time you realized that mom and dad were there by your bedside?
Well, I know from what I've heard that I knew that they were there very early on and that was very comforting to me. I don't have any memories of the first of my time in the hospital in Spain. To be truthful, I my first memory is when we got home and Fourth of July fireworks outside of my Minneapolis hospital.
So that was a
Wow.
month after the
Yeah.
accident, but during that time in Spain that she doesn't have any memory of, she would recognize our voices. She would squeeze our hand when we asked her to. She clearly knew who we were, and and that brought her a lot of calm and comfort at the time. But as Maggie mentioned, no memory of that time on her end.
When you got home, and Maggie was in the hospital there in Minnesota, Dad, did you start seeing some progression in her healing a little bit? Because a lot of people always say, if something happens like that, but they get in the familiar confines or they know they're home, they're around more family members, that the healing process, it really helps it. Did you see that happen when she got home?
We did, Mike, but I also would say that her healing was very day by day, and there really weren't any setbacks along the way from day one in Spain. It seemed like every day when we would visit with her, every visit, she just looked a little bit better, and progress was continuing. And that continued when she was medically evacuated back to the States, and flew home in an air ambulance, and started the recovery process back in Minneapolis, and her healing just continued. So yeah, I think being in familiar surroundings, having friends and family that could come by and see her definitely helped. When she moved back into our house, that definitely helped. But her recovery was fantastic. After she was released and allowed to go home 2 months after the accident, we were talking with her orthopedic surgeon, and Maggie's been confined for 2 months. She can't walk, she can't get up out of bed, and she's an athlete, she's a runner, she just wants to go, and she doesn't understand what's going on. And I asked her orthopedic surgeon if we could start swimming, and at first, he didn't like the idea, like I was going to send her out in an open water swim of
Yeah.
2.4 miles and say good luck. But I'm like, no, we're just going to go to the pool and just see if we can do some laps. And so he gave us the okay for that, and she was able to start swimming, was able to start walking around that time as well, and then received clearance to run about four months after the accident. So
Yeah, it didn't.
we keep using the word amazing and miracle, but it truly was.
Yeah, and for the type of injuries that Maggie had, Maggie, for you to hear the surgeon only 4 months after the accident say that he's never released anybody to go out and run with the type of injuries you had. Your resolve is something else, Maggie. Did you know you were going to be able to get down that path much quicker than others may have suspected?
I certainly hope that was the case. When you're going through something like this, it's so easy to get bogged down in the day to day, just the work you need to put in and how far you have to go. I was really hurt. I could not walk or run as like I did, and it just seemed like it was going to take a really long time to get back there. So I was hopeful, and I kept the faith, kept the trust, and was patient and kept working hard and just trusting that things would get better.
Well, then about a year and a half later, Dad suggests, why don't we jump into an Olympic distance triathlon and do that together? Uh, did you feel, Tad, that was the same type of ask that you did with the Twin Cities Marathon earlier? All of a sudden, well, you know what? She's swimming, she ran cross country, she's healing, and why don't we do this Olympic distance try together?
Yeah,
Was it the same type process?
yeah, it's similar, but a little bit different on the marathon. I certainly knew she could do it, and thought it would be a good challenge for her. But she was getting so much benefit from running and from swimming and from being active in her overall healing. When you look at healing from an accident like this, there's obviously the physical healing. There was the mental healing with the brain injuries, and there's emotional healing. And I think that I think that being active and running and swimming was helping her in all of those areas. So we could really see that her confidence was building by being able to be active and to do these things. And she couldn't run nearly as fast as she could before the accident. And but we're like, hey, she knows how to swim. She enjoys running. We need to get her a bike and see how that goes. And so we went out and did that. And it turns out, hey, she's pretty good on the bike. So it just more than anything, it was a way to continue to build her confidence as she was rebuilding her life, if you will. And so we signed up to do a race together, an Olympic distance event about 14 months after the accident. I broke out all my old triathlon gear from the closet and relearned to swim again, and we trained together and did the race. And she had a fantastic race. Her transition times were terrible. We still joke about that. She was kind of sitting around in the transition area, tying her shoes and doing her hair and just and things like that. But her time ended up being really good, and so we just kind of stumbled on to something that she happened to be good at, and that was the start of Maggie's triathlon journey in 2015.
Well, Maggie, why did you feel that race was the one that kind of pulled you out of what the past was all about?
I just loved being able to find something that I enjoyed doing, a combination of three sports that I really loved. And it I enjoyed that I was good at it. That was fun. So it was nice to be good at something that I hadn't tried before the accident and really succeed in that and feel that there was hope on the other side of this horrible thing that had happened to me. And I could I could be good at something that I hadn't previously tried.
And didn't you win your age group and qualify for the nationals at that race?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, so we were happy because I won my age group, and it was great, and
Yeah.
I got a trophy, and I was like, well, this is really nice. Like maybe I'll do one next year. And then I got an email in January that said, congratulations, you qualified for nationals. And I
Wow.
forwarded it to my dad and said, is this legit? Can I trust this? And dad looked into it and it was legit. And yeah, I raced nationals that year, that
I,
coming
I
2016.
Yeah, I'd been
I
away
love it.
from the sport probably for 10 or 12 years, and we got the email and we're like, wow, I mean that's cool. And so I called some friends here in the triathlon community, and I'm like, should we do this? Should she go and race at nationals? They're like, yeah, absolutely. And so that was kind of where the light bulb, I think the first triathlon, it was just the accomplishment of finishing it and having a fun day, and whatever the distance is, whether it's a sprint triathlon,
Right,
Olympic
right.
distance, or a full Ironman, there's just such a great feeling and rush of adrenaline when you finish that race, and when you can stop, and then just the triathlon community and being around everyone that's done the race too. And so it was just a fun experience, and we didn't really think of it more than that. But then that email was like, huh, maybe we're onto something here. And so Maggie trained a little bit harder the next year and raced at nationals. I think took 13th at nationals that year in the 20 to 24 age group, which qualified her for worlds the following year. So that was when we were like, oh, okay, this is something that she's pretty good at, and her body's starting to heal. She's getting faster. She can do all three sports, and it was just a big confidence boost when you go through an accident like she did. A lot of things were stripped away from her life. A
Right.
lot of things changed in her life. And the sport of triathlon really Really brought purpose to her days and to her training, and gave her things to look forward to. And we didn't have grand expectations or anything like that. We just saw that this was really helping in her healing and helping her confidence. And we were all supportive of that.
yeah, yeah, Tad, Maggie, you realize, like thousands of athletes have told me, swim, bike, run, and triathlon helps them heal in so many different ways. Helps them heal to cope with things, helps them heal mentally, helps them heal physically, that you went through, Maggie, and it does. But Maggie, I got to throw something at you. It's not too bad to have a swimming and cross-country background. I'm telling you right now. You know how many triathletes out there would love to have that swimming and cross-country background? So that's a big plus for you.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So
Yeah, and back to your, oh, excuse me.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, back to your point about the healing that can take place through triathlon. That was one thing that I really loved about your book, was just all the stories of the healing and the hope that can be brought through triathlon. That was so inspiring. And I really appreciate how much other people have gone through and still pushing themselves to complete the Ironman distance.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And stories like that need to be told, because we all need to heal in some way, shape, or form during our lives. And we hope the things we do and say, and I'll talk about Dad's book in a second. Hold on, everyone. We'll be right back after a message from our sponsors. Curad, the official medical supplier of Ironman. Let Curad keep you strong so those strains and pains of training and you trying to find your finish line go away. With their wraps, races, and tape, and especially their far infrared kinesiology tape that'll keep you strong through all your training. Check out their products today on Amazon.com, at Walmart, and Ironman.com, and let Curad help you find your finish line. So you got married in 2019, but then in 2021, Maggie Swanson decides to do her very first Ironman. You signed up for Ironman Wisconsin as an Ironman Foundation athlete as part of their team. I've got two questions for you, Maggie. Why'd you decide that, okay, I'm going to do my first Ironman, and why did you connect with the Ironman Foundation?
Yeah, so the answer to your first question, why I decided to do an Ironman, it was always something that, I mean, I'm sure you've heard this from a lot of Ironman racers. Always something that was in the back of my head ever since I'd seen my dad complete the first one. Just always something I really wanted to do. And late 2020, I thought about it, and I thought, I haven't raced for a few years, but I think this is my year to do an Ironman, race. So I'm going to train really hard. I'm going to do my best to get ready for it, and I'm going to take the challenge. And I just felt ready to go. Why I decided to,
Yeah, the
go ahead.
Ironman Foundation.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so the Ironman Foundation, that was an easy decision. I looked at the Ironman Foundation, looked what they stood for, the community that they supported, all the things that they supported, and I really loved that. And I loved the idea of racing for not just yourself, but for something bigger than yourself. You put so much time and energy into training and into racing, and so much of it is focused on yourself and on how your race is going to be.
Right.
Sometimes and it's helpful to look outside of you, I feel, and see other people and the good you can bring out of your racing.
Yeah, because you had to realize now people are seeing you race. You know, you do the Olympic distance race. You come in, you do Ironman Wisconsin. And Maggie, you have to realize you're an influence to others now. They're seeing your story, hearing your story, and then seeing what you're doing. Obviously, the actions speak louder than even the words. But that has to be very gratifying for you that you're passing on the inspiration, isn't it?
That was another big part of why I wanted to race for the foundation. Um, just like you said, to pass along the gratitude and just how grateful I was for how much people had poured into me to help me heal, and to be able to share that with others and give them hope that the bad things that happen in life, they don't define you. You can move past them, and they can become some of the things that shape you the most, and some of your greatest strengths.
Yeah, and I see that in you. I just so see that in you. Uh, okay, Dad. So you see your daughter finish Ironman Wisconsin, and then that old adage of, wow, this was a journey. This is a story that needs to be told. And people write for self-healing also, and people write to be able to let others know the journey is not always easy, but that finish line can always be there. And you wrote a great book, 25 Meters to God. If you're watching the video podcast right now, I've got it up in the air there, which you can get on Amazon. So what tell me about the process of that, watching your daughter finish Wisconsin, and you said, you know what, I've got to chronicle this. I've got to put this down.
Yeah, I'd actually, back when the accident happened in 2014, I did some writing at that time, just keeping really people informed of how Maggie was healing and just all of the miracles that we were seeing over in Spain and then back here in the States. And that kind of continued on for a few years. There's a website called Caring Bridge that I wrote on that people could log in to get various updates on Maggie and how she was doing. And through that process, I just had a lot of people say, you got to write a book. And so it was in the back of my mind for a number of years. And I started writing the book about 5 years ago. I'm not a super fast writer, Mike. The weather would get nice out. I'd set it aside for a while. So I was making progress, but hadn't brought the book to the finish line yet. So we go to Maggie's doing Ironman Wisconsin in 2021. We go to the race. My wife Wendy always jokes, I'm not going to let you go to races anymore, because whenever you go to these, you get these crazy ideas and you want to do them. And and I know, Mike, from a big part of your book and a big part of your career has just been built around that finish line experience, and you just make that. You just that's kind of the icing on the cake, the cherry on top for the Ironman experience is having you call an athlete's name across the finish line. So I'm there at the finish line, and we're tracking Maggie and watching her come across, and she had a fantastic race. She finished 10th in the women's division in 2021, and it was just this phenomenal experience. You called her across the finish line. Just a total success for her first Ironman. In the days and weeks that followed, that's where I started to get this idea percolating in my mind. It's like, hey, I really want to get this book done, number one. Number two, what if we were to train together and do the race together in 2022? And then Maggie had raced for Ironman Foundation in 2021. What if we also race together for the Ironman Foundation and raise money as we train for the race? So that was kind of the big idea that popped into my mind. I asked my wife what she thought, if she thought I was crazy to tackle all this, and she said, "No, I think I'm behind you on this. I think you should do it." And that's when we decided to put the plan into action. So I started working hard on the book to get the book done, and found a publisher for the book. We started training together, and did some races leading up to the race. And then we started raising money for the foundation. And I think just the power of Maggie's story and all of the people that had supported her over this 8-year process allowed us to, and just some very generous friends, allowed us to raise a nice amount of money for the foundation and 3 other charities that we wanted to support. So
Yeah,
that's been our year of 2022.
yeah, that was one heck of a year, and I'm going to say it because the motto, as you know, of Ironman Foundation is the race for more. You know, you're doing something greater than yourself. But you guys raised $344,000. That is monumental. That is my congratulations to you. And I know the Ironman Foundation, the same thing. They appreciate that beyond words. So, did you ever think you're going to raise that kind of money?
Yeah, it was.
Oh,
First of
you
all, we
did.
had.
Well, you go, yeah.
Well, no, I didn't think it would be that much, but I knew we could. I knew we could raise a significant amount, and we have some very generous friends, first of all, but secondarily, Maggie's story. You know, these were all the people that had supported her over this 8-year process, and the book I think helped a little bit too. So it was just kind of laying out the vision of the book, and that we were training to do this race together, and that we laid out a pretty strong challenge, and asked for some significant gifts. So my initial goal on the Ironman fundraising site was $250,000. So that's what I kind of thought was what we could do. We ran through that so fast, and I got a little
Wow.
carried away and raised the goal up even more beyond that. But we were thrilled with the 344,000.
Yeah, nothing wrong with getting carried away with a goal and objective like that, Tad. Nothing wrong with that at all. Maggie, here you raced Wisconsin in September, this last September with your dad. But my goodness, you crushed it. You won your age group and you qualified for Kona. Through the process from accident to that, qualifying for Kona, did you ever think that was going to happen?
No, I did not think that. I didn't think that was in the cards. When initially after my accident, I just wanted to get back to my my normal, quote unquote, normal life, and I just wanted to get back to running cross country and going to college, and I just wanted to heal. And the process of healing stripped a lot of things away. So I lost a lot in the accident, lost my athletic ability, lost, for a good part, my cognitive, um, my student, I was a pretty good student, so lost some of that. Just needed so much support, and I'm so grateful for my family and all my friends who came alongside me to provide that. But I just wanted to heal. And I just kept putting one foot in front of the other, and beautiful things came out of this accident. And and the big lesson that I've had from in all of this is that when you're in the middle of a hard circumstance like this, you think that there's no way out, and you can't see the end, and you're just struggling for the next day. But there is hope, and things will get better. So you just have to keep going and trust that they will. And the best things can come out of this. Some of the best things in my life became after the accident. I met my husband after the accident. I don't know if that would have happened without the accident. I'm closer to my family and my friends. Some great friends came into my life. We got a puppy. Um, and the sport of triathlon was a huge piece of that. And I don't know if the sport of triathlon would have come without the accident.
Maggie, how much did you lean on your faith to heal?
My faith is everything. You don't get thrown 25 meters through the air and survive it without God's protection and God's help. And I am so grateful that he saved me, and I'm grateful for all the work that he's done in my life ever since the accident happened, and just how far he's brought me. And that's back to the good coming out of bad things. You don't think there's any way that something good can come out of it, that God can bring something good out of it. But just have endurance, have faith, and trust and believe that it will get better.
Well, Maggie, the entire experience is not something that, we would ever want to see anybody go through, obviously. But when you do go through something like this, as traumatic as this, you learn a little bit more about yourself. What did Maggie Swanson learn about herself that you really didn't know?
Well, I learned how fundamental my faith is to my life, and that it really is the cornerstone that I can go to. I learned that even when things get hard, you can get through it. With the support of friends and family, the hardest things in life can be the most rewarding things. And that also applies to racing Ironman. I mean, that was the 2021 was the hardest race I had ever done. And but the reward was so great at the end, and I was so happy that I did it, and I persevered through that. I learned that hard work does pay off, and it's patience and hard work, and the rewards will come.
Yeah, the patience is a big part, that's for sure. And uh, Tad, you knew, you and Wendy, your wife, know what your daughter was made of before the accident. I mean, you raised her, you showed her a lot of, by example, things that you did that she picked up on. But were you surprised at all? I mean, at her fortitude and her resolve to push through this? Did that any bit of it surprise you, or you did say, "Well, you know what? That's Maggie."
Yeah, we're very, very surprised in many ways. I'd say the answer to your question is both. Yes, that is Maggie. That's always throughout her life, whatever she's put her mind to and put her hand to, she's done it with all her might, and that continued after the accident. But I think the real unique part of her story is, the accident. She was hit by 22 tons of bus going 37 miles an hour. She flew 25 meters through the air. A lot of your listeners are triathletes, Mike, and just go look at a swimming pool and look at 25 meters and imagine being launched through the air that distance. And it's just for her to survive that accident, we can't come up with any answer other than God performing a miracle. But the injuries that she sustained were severe, but she healed from those so quickly. And I think the thing that's been surprising for us in the journey is just that each year has kind of revealed something new. We stumbled into triathlon, and she had some good success with that. The next year we went to nationals. The next year she goes to worlds. Then she was injured and she meets her husband, and she gets married. And then we go through COVID, so there's no racing during COVID.
Yeah.
And then she did the Ironman in 2021, and we did it together in 2022. So it's just been this journey and this process. And frankly, we've been surprised at the results that she's been able to have, and they've just seemed to be getting better and better each year. And it's not like winning races is the end all in all of this, but it's fun, and it's neat to see. So she took 10th in 2021, and then this year she won the amateur division at Ironman Wisconsin. So that's been the amazing part for me, is just to see that progression, and and I just think it's a testament to her desire to train and to be consistent about doing that, and just her love of the sport. And she's getting some really great results that are coming out of it.
So besides the World Championship in October of 2023, what's on the slate? Are you two racing together anywhere in the spring or summer of next year? You got any plans?
Well, I'll jump in first, Mike. So I did my first Ironman in 2002. I did
I
my second
know.
one in 2022. So I need about 20 years to recover before I do another one.
You know, Tad, you can't pull that by me. That's a poor excuse. I don't want to hear that.
But I'm excited to watch Maggie race in Kona, and she's gonna put in the work this year, and we got to figure out some hot weather training techniques here, because you don't get a lot of that up here in Minnesota.
Yeah, that is true. Well, one of the final questions I ask on Find Your Finish Line is called Tri-Table Racing. It comes out of I've got friends that race the Baja 1000 down in Mexico in their big trophy trucks, and they've done it for years, and they've won it. Afterwards, all the racers get together and sit around the table, and they reminisce about the race. So I'm going to have you guys reminisce, pick something from an event you did. It's called Tri-Table Racing. We're sitting around the table, and you're telling me about something that happened at an event, in an event, good or bad. Why don't we start with you, Maggie? What memory comes to your mind that you can reminisce with us about?
Oh, I mean, we can go two directions with this. But so I have the bad experience, but I'll start with my good experience. My good experience was getting called across the finish line in 2021. It was by you. It was just the culmination of my healing, and I remember just thinking, I can't believe I did this. It was really hard, and I did it, and just thank you to everyone who had supported me along the way. And then I crossed the finish line, and I collapsed and started crying, and my parents picked me up and brought me to the foundation tent.
Nothing wrong with
um
that.
yeah, certainly. No, so that was definitely the highlight of my experience. Hmm.
And
Tad,
I'm going to go with the same
yeah, go
with the
ahead.
same race, but in 2022. So, Mike, you remember Madison this year? The weather was just awful. So it
Oh
was
my God. My
mid
clothes, Tad.
50s. It
My
rained.
yeah, my clothes in the garage just dried out. That's how it's just, my gosh. It was,
So just brutal race conditions, and 55 degrees. It rained 3 inches during the day. The wind was
I know.
blowing all day long. It was just it was
Tough.
just a brutal day. But it affected everybody. Everybody's times were slower, I think, except for Maggie's. But so it was just a long day, and my watch stopped working, and I'm coming up on the halfway point of the marathon, and I ran into our support crew, and they told me that Maggie had won the race. So halfway through the marathon, I get the news that she's won, and that she qualified for Kona. And so I'm just off the charts happy hearing that news. And but the bad news is I got to go run another 13.1 miles after hearing that, when I just wanted to go in and take a hot shower and have a beer. And so I go off to work my way through the last half of the marathon. And one of the unique things at Ironman Wisconsin is that the run course takes you through the football stadium.
Right.
So Camp Randall Stadium, where the Wisconsin Badgers play, beautiful stadium, and you get to run through the stadium in 2 laps while you're doing the race. And while I was doing that, um, our story is 25 meters to God. Well, a football field's in yards, but I quick did the math and said, okay, 25 meters, that's about 28 yards. And I just stopped for a minute on the 28-yard line, looked at the end zone, looked at that distance, and just said, thank you, God, that you protected her and saved her, and here we are today, and she's won this race, and it was a beautiful moment.
That is beautiful, Tad. I just, it's so many times in our lives we put markers down, and I can just see you stopping at that 28-yard line and going, okay, this is my marker, and this is where I've got to reflect. And people tell me stories of doing that all the time, and we need to do that because it then gives us a self-realization that we're alive, our friends are alive, our family's alive, we're here doing what we're doing, and we're blessed by it. So I understand that completely. Last question. What message, Maggie, would you give to age groupers out there? Give us a message you would pass along to all of the age group athletes, wannabes, first-timers, people thinking about getting into the sport. Give us your message to them.
I'd say that you can do anything you put your mind to. It takes patience and trust and hard work. And if you're willing to put in the hard work and trust the process, then you will see good things come out of it. And it can be personal good things, it can be race results, it doesn't have to be race results, but so much good can come out of just focusing and dedicating yourself to that hard work.
Well, your hard work has definitely paid off, and I believe it's still paying off, and it'll pay off for the rest of your life. Yes, when things come along and are really negative in our lives, when we pull the positives out of it, like you have, Maggie, we see what you have attained. And Tad, from a father's point of view, you have to be so doggone proud and something that you never wanted to see happen, but it's almost like you have a new daughter, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And one thing that we talk about a lot is as bad as the accident was, and as much time and struggle went through the recovery. At this point, we wouldn't change a thing. We wouldn't want to go back. We've just learned so much and seen so much and been supported by so many people, and so many people have realized positive things, whether from Maggie's accident, whether it was getting into their fitness or growing in their faith, or just we hear these stories all the time. So that just makes it all worth it for us, and we're just we're certainly thankful to be on this side of things. But it's been a great journey, and it's not done yet.
No, it is not done yet. Tad and Maggie, thank you very much for your time and sharing your story with us. And hopefully people have been inspired by it. 25 Meters to God, Tad's book. Make sure you pick that up and find out what the journey was really all about. And I can't wait, Maggie, to see what you do in the future. I'll be following you. And it was my pure honor to bring you both across that finish line this past September in Madison. So the best of luck to both of you going down the road. Give a hug to your family. And I can't wait to see what you do in the future.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. And congratulations to you on your retirement,
Yes.
Mike. And you've just created hundreds of thousands of memories that just nothing compares to it. So on behalf of the triathlon community, we want to thank you.
Well, I thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. And thank you to everyone for checking in again with Find Your Finish Line, the podcast that talks to people who've jumped over a lot of hurdles to get they where they are today. And they keep jumping them to be able to find your finish line. Remember, so many times in our life, we have to be thankful for the ones in our lives because we cannot do it by ourselves. As selfish as the sport is, an endurance sport of going out there and working out on your own, setting your goals, the whole deal. We've got to have that support system. So make sure you thank them. And thank you again to Curad Performance Series, the official medical supplier of Ironman, where you can find their far infrared kinesiology tape at Walmart, at Ironman.com, and on Amazon. Take care, everybody. And as always, my warmest aloha.